Health insurance provider SZV announces their online services. Member of Parliament for the United Democrats elucidates about the CFT and the pension reform. And Minister of Education says schools will reopen in August, depending on the current situation. Those are the headlines for Thursday, July the 23rd, 2020. This is SXM Daily News. I am Valerie Van Putten. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And as usual, we have a packed newscast for you, so let's get started. In our first story for today, Minister of Education, the Honorable Dr. Anders Rodolph Samuel, speaking at the Council of Ministers' weekly press briefing, gave an update on the reopening of schools. The minister says that while schools will be opening in August, it depends on the situation of the island at that time.
Most naturally, I can understand, and it is true, that we are now on the 22nd of July, and August is around the corner, so a lot of persons, parents, teachers, students will be wondering what will be happening in August regarding the opening of schools. And I would like to say, yes, schools will be opening in August, but the schools will be opening depending on the situation of the island at that time. And why am I saying it like that? Presently in St. Martin, we can hear about 1 or 2 cases. And if you were to open schools at this moment, you can imagine it will be totally different than if you would approach the opening of school with 0 cases or with more than 1 or 2 cases. So the ministry have prepared different approaches. We have 4 approaches, and the 4 approaches range from going back to school as normal or going back to school staggered or different strategies depending on the situation of the virus on the island. This information has been given to the school boards, and together with the ministries, they are discussing the different phases. In which phase, what do you do? In which phase, what don't you do? You can imagine that we have different school facilities with different sizes. So if you were to have a school where the classrooms are very big, distancing in such a classroom would be different than a school with small classrooms. Then you would have to take the number of students into consideration. The number of students per class at that moment will also differ. All of these factors, together with the regular COVID advisory, which is mask or shield, wash hand, and social distancing, together with wash hand stations and sanitizing stations, all of these issues are being discussed with the school boards.
And in other news, a member of Parliament for the United Democrats, Mrs. Sarah Westcott Williams, speaking on the topic of the function book for the justice personnel, says that it is quite puzzling considering that on January the 7th this year, the current minister's predecessor found legal basis to execute police officers' payment, and that the document was approved and was to be forwarded. She elaborates further.
On July 10th of this year, a release by the Minister of Justice, Minister Anna Richardson, cited her efforts to be informed of the process to come to the establishment of the function books of the justice personnel. This release by the Honorable Minister is quite puzzling. Quite puzzling considering that on January the 7th of this year, the minister's predecessor under the caption found legal basis to execute police officers' payment stated, and I quote, "The document was approved and has been submitted to the governor and will be forwarded to the Council of Advice. Once this legislative route is complete, this national decree will be published and entered into force. Mind you, this is January of this year. And this particular statement by Minister Richardson's predecessor and party colleague came after the same former minister, through his predecessor, who was the acting Minister of Justice, Perry Hearlings, under the proverbial bus in a scathing attack in the local media. What we see on the website of the Council of Advice today is a draft decree in Dutch tot de wijziging van het besluit rechtspositie Korps Politie Sint Maarten in verband met de invoeging van nieuwe salaristabellen. This is a change to the formal position of the Police Corps of St. Martin in connection with the addition or the insertion of new salary scales. So that means that a draft decree of this nature is at the Council of Advice for its review, which, when you have a general decree of this nature, that it has to receive advice from the Council of Advice. But the most troubling aspect in this all is that despite the many promises and finger pointing and how we have seen this entire matter played out also in the context of the sale of St. Martin's share in UTS, now it seems as if our justice personnel is still nowhere closer to a solution. And this at a time when we are calling on many of these very same persons to go the extra mile during these trying times our island is facing. So again, I have submitted questions via the Chairperson of Parliament to the Minister of Justice, Minister Richardson, and these questions based on the Minister's statement as well as statements regarding this issue by predecessors of the minister. So what I would like to know in my capacity as the faction of the United Democrats in Parliament is the following. How many consultants have been employed to prepare the function books for the employees of the Ministry of Justice? I would like to know who these are, and I would like to see the contracts of these persons. So what are they? What is or was expected of the companies contracted to assist in this process? I would also like to know what the deliverables from this, or if it's more than one, these companies have been thus far. In referring back to what is at the Council of Advice, because the site of the Council of Advice does not say that the matter has gone back to the government. It says it's under review, it's being handled. That's what it says. And so I would like to know what the content and the context is of the draft decree, which is at the Council of Advice. And I want to know if these new salary scales to which the caption of the decree at the council refers, whether these salary scales are part of the new function book that the minister and before her other ministers of justice have spoken about.
Prime Minister of St. Martin, the Honorable Sylvia Jacobs, gave reporters an update on the support from the Dutch government at the virtual Council of Ministers weekly press briefing on Wednesday last. The Prime Minister said that they still do not believe that the Caribbean reform entity that has been proposed by the Dutch government is a necessary entity to be able to receive or manage the reforms necessary for the COVID-19 liquidity support. She expounds further.
As you may know, I've recently returned from the Netherlands where we had discussions. The Council of Ministers still does not believe that the Caribbean reform entity that has been proposed by the Dutch government is a necessary entity to be able to receive or manage the reforms necessary or COVID-19 liquidity support. We as government continue to evaluate the draft concept as has been presented by the Netherlands. There are certain aspects that remain unacceptable, as I mentioned before. However, in light of our recently launched National Development Vision, which was done last Friday, there are certain elements that overlap with the package of proposed reforms, the Landspakketten. Our NDV has been also made public as of Monday this week. Stakeholders did receive their first copy to be able to peruse, and there is a trajectory of community dialogue to ensure that there is buy-in for this vision, which is a 2020-2030 vision. As such, the Department of Buck, which was dealing with it, is comparing the proposed reforms to see where the overlap is, exactly what we would term our priorities for the first 4 years within our governing program, and that would be included in what we are also doing in terms of the working groups that have been established by government. So there is a legal team that is analyzing the same reforms as well as the legalities of the consensus kingdom law as it has been presented, looking at alternatives so that we can potentially come with a collective counter-proposal together with our sister islands, Aruba and Curacao.
And still to come, police are investigating shots that were fired in the Pelican area. We'll have the details of that story and much more when SXM Daily News returns.
GEBE has been faithfully serving the communities of St. Martin, powering your home and our economy. Come rain or shine, our qualified team of professionals are working hard 24 hours a day to provide you and your family with safe, reliable electricity and water. We use the latest technologies and test our products daily to maintain the highest international standards. Our friendly staff is always there to assist you, whether in person, over the phone, or online. We are committed to constantly improving our products and services, making them more efficient, effective, and environmentally friendly to serve you better today and our next generation of clients tomorrow. GEBE, powering a brighter future.
Our friend Megawati is here with tips to save you energy. 1. Turn your airco temperature up. 2. Use a ceiling fan instead. 3. Buy energy-saving products. Save some green with NVGEBE.
And welcome back, viewers. This is SXM Daily News. As we continue now, the Member of Parliament for the United Democrats, Mrs. Sarah Westcott Williams, speaking to our news department in an audio statement, the Member of Parliament elucidated about the CFT and the pension reform of the civil servants. Mrs. Westcott Williams says that she is concerned about the communication by the CFT regarding their position on the proposals from government for compliance with the conditions set by the Netherlands. This is in connection with the second tranche of liquidity assistance.
It is with much concern that I have learned of the communication by the CFT regarding their position on the proposals from government for compliance with the conditions set by the Netherlands in connection with the second tranche of liquidity assistance. From media reports, it has become apparent that the CFT has informed the government that they cannot advise positively on the government's stance that the pension reform for civil servants, as approved not too long ago, cannot be considered as compliance or partial compliance with the Dutch condition of a 12.5% reduction in personnel cost. So in other words, the CFT has made it known that they cannot agree with this position of the government of St. Martin. Over the last couple of months, I have consistently asked the Minister of Finance to share with Parliament how the government is complying with the conditions for the second tranche of liquidity assistance for the COVID-19 pandemic. And while the answers from government have been quite evasive, we have had public exchanges between the government, its employees, and their representatives, even semi-government entities. And these exchanges have been acrimonious, to say the least. What I have done again is ask the government via the chairperson of Parliament, the Minister of Finance, to be specific, questions regarding this matter. And these questions are: what is the complete presentation by government to qualify for the second tranche of COVID-related assistance? I have asked the government to specify and include the measures taken also by the semi-public entities, so the foundations, the government-owned companies, etc. And I want a listing of these entities. So to all of the entities that the government has communicated that these entities fall under the conditions by the Dutch government, I would like to know who they are, what and how these have complied or sought to comply with the conditions. I have also asked the Minister of Finance whether the government has received the CFT's evaluation of the measures taken by government in compliance or to comply with the Kingdom government's conditions. And I would like to see that correspondence. So what has the CFT told the government after they have evaluated what the government of St. Martin has sent in terms of the cost cutting, in personnel costs, and all of the other cuts that the Dutch government has put as a condition?
And in other news at this time, the personnel of the detective department are currently investigating a situation where shots were fired in the area of Pelican in the early morning hours of July the 22nd, 2020. The police patrol and forensics department were sent to a dwelling on Ruby Drive after the central dispatch relayed that several gunshots were heard in the vicinity. Officers who arrived at the scene indeed found indications that several shots were fired at the location. There was blood found at the scene, and the personnel of the forensic department took samples. A search was done in the area, but neither victim nor perpetrator was found. So far, the police have no clear picture of what had taken place up to now. The forensic department is still collecting evidence in this investigation. More information will be provided as it becomes available. The police department is asking if anyone knows anything or may have information as to what took place. Please do not hesitate to contact the police detective department at telephone number 1-721-542-2222 or the anonymous tip line on 9300. It is free of charge. You can also visit the website at www.policesxm.sx to report crime anonymously via the tip contact form, or you can leave a private message via our Facebook page, which is Police Force of St. Martin - Corps Politie St. Martin, and if you know or suspect anything. Now turning to our weather forecast for July the 23rd, 2020. At 11 a.m., the center of Tropical Storm Gonzalo was located near latitude 9.6 north, longitude 48.3 west, or about 1,150 miles southeast of St. Martin. The system is moving toward the west near 14 miles per hour, with maximum sustained winds near 65 miles per hour and higher gusts. Strengthening is forecasted during the next couple of days, and Gonzalo could become a hurricane tonight or on Friday. This system is expected to pass well south of St. Martin. Gonzalo currently poses no direct threat to St. Martin. The Meteorological Department of St. Martin will continue to monitor the progress of the system and keep the public updated accordingly. Seas are expected to deteriorate and peak at 8 feet over the next few days. Small craft operators and sea bathers should continue to exercise caution. So the outlook through Saturday midday, partly cloudy to cloudy with isolated showers. Now let's turn to your 3-day forecast. And still to come, Member of Parliament for the National Alliance, speaking about the Kingdom Charter, says we are not free. We'll have the details to that story and more when SXM Daily News returns.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit wib-bank.net/quick-login.
And welcome back, viewers, as we continue now with more news. And in this item out of Curaçao, the opposition party, MFK, does not want new elections now. This is according to their new leader, Gilmar Pisas. Elections today do not seem like a good idea to him because it may take months before a new government takes over. Pisas favors a crisis cabinet. According to the parliamentarian, there is no longer any trust between the local government and the Netherlands, and a crisis cabinet must, therefore, be formed with professionals who can enjoy the trust of the Dutch government. Pisas thinks that there is therefore room for consultation about the conditions of the new loan from the Netherlands. And in other news at this time, Member of Parliament for the National Alliance, the Honorable George Pontiflet, is taking issue with the Kingdom Charter. Speaking to our news department, he says he is taking issue with the Kingdom Charter that was signed when we agreed to certain conditions in achieving our separate status. The Member of Parliament says that he has concluded that we are not free.
How can you say you're free if you are within what do you call it, an institution or a frame of our system where your laws are subjugated to other laws? We have what you call the Kingdom Charter. We have the Constitution of St. Martin. We have the rules of order, of course, of Parliament. We have many other laws that definitely one has to abide by. But within the Kingdom Charter itself, the Dutch government is telling you plain there are certain competencies which falls under the authority. And these were mentioned, I believe, in Article 3 of the Kingdom Charter, specifying exactly from, I think, A to G, the saying that they are responsible for. As a matter of fact, they even went as far to say that they can add other conditions or other restrictions to laws that they want to make sure that they are in control of. And I'm saying, if we are part of a kingdom, then I don't think it should be set up in a way where your laws supersede our laws. The guest mentioned an issue of the preamble, where it said that of our own free will, we agreed to the conditions in the Charter, and that is true. But there's another part of the preamble which was not mentioned, and that was on equal basis. And there's where it goes wrong, because if you talk about equality, then it should not be that there are laws within the same charter or articles within the same charter that restricts you, ensures that whatever final decision it has to come to or has to be made, then it is the Dutch government that decides. For instance, we have what you call Article 38, where amongst ourselves the countries can make agreements and laws and everything. But note carefully, they always make sure that they put that these agreements must be made by kingdom law or kingdom general measures. And why do I say this is not free? I mean, not free in this essence. When the procedure starts, before the king can sign it, it has to go to the second, I think the first or the second chamber. Okay? Our minister plenipotentiary has the authority to bring a verbal protest and so on. She can even call on delegates from the islands in order to support him or her during those discussions.
And in our continuing series with social health insurance SZV, with the many changes that have come about due to the COVID-19 pandemic, communications officer at our social health insurance company SZV, Mrs. Parveen Butcher, tells our newsroom more about the new online services that has been introduced and how extensive the online services are. One of the first changes will be the visit to the control doctor, and she explains.
To begin with, the visit to the control doctor.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of
That's number one.
Yeah, number one. Persons who are currently employed and are unfit for work have to report to our control doctor on their third day of being unfit for work. And in the past, you would walk in, get a number, and be assisted. That has changed, because when we closed our doors, it was like physically not possible to walk in. So we had to come up with an alternative. The alternative is that you will report online. So you will send in a form. We have an AO reporting form on our website, and then the control doctor will call you. The control doctor will conduct a telephone assessment. And I always like to use the example of a broken arm. If you have a broken arm, there's not, it's very inconvenient, and you might be in pain, you had an operation. But from a control doctor point of view, it's a very clear situation. There's not much that can change in that situation. So there is a standard amount of sick days that he can give for a broken arm. So he will have the telephone assessment, you will email us the medical report, and based on that information, the doctor will give you the designated time for sick leave. And on the day that you are fit for work again, you go back to work. If the control doctor deems it necessary for you to come to the office, he will then invite you to come on an appointment. And so it's still possible to see the control doctor, however, it needs to be initiated from the control doctor.
Okay.
And then when you visit the SZV office, there are a few precautionary measures in place. For example, you can only visit our office when you have an appointment. So without appointment, you will not be allowed entry to the offices.
No more walk-ins.
No more walk-ins. Yes.
Finished.
No.
Done.
Exactly. And it will not be coming back either. It is a very difficult way of service for us to control the amount of people that are coming in. And pre-COVID, we didn't really thought about that. But the COVID-19 situation forced us, yes, to think about the amount of people we have in our buildings, air circulation, the way that we interact with each other, the hygiene measures. So having like a large group of people in our buildings is not responsible anymore. So we do it on invitation, on appointment. When you have that appointment, you have to wear your face masks, and your hands will be sanitized. And as an extra check, we take your temperature to see that you don't have fever, and then you are all good to come in.
And as we end this edition of SXM Daily News for this evening, with the state of the economy what it is today, Minister of Finance, the Honorable Artwell Irion, speaking at the virtual weekly Council of Ministers press briefing on Wednesday last, announced that he has been in meetings with the financial institution Credits, and they are offering a $25,000 bridge loan for persons needing financial assistance. He expounds further.
I have been in meetings with Credits, and I would like to inform the public that they are now offering a $25,000 bridge loan at 2%. These loans start with a 2% grace period for 6 months that consists of interest payments only, followed by 6 months of principal plus interest payments with a 2% interest rate, then 3 years of principal interest payments with a 6.75% interest rate. For those interested, please contact Credits or visit them directly.
And with that, viewers, we've come to the end of this edition of SXM Daily News. I am Valerie Van Putten, thanking you for joining me this evening. And just a reminder that this and other programs are available online. Simply log on to stmartinmediacenter.com for viewing. And on behalf of the SXM Daily News team, we once again thank you for watching us and plan on meeting you right back here again tomorrow.